Trojan fans, welcome to another edition of the Peristyle Podcast. Merry Christmas. It's Christmas Eve day here. I'm in my sister's basement, essentially. Connor Morrissette in his childhood bedroom, but we're bringing you a Peristyle Podcast anyway. Hopefully this works. We're live on YouTube, and you can get it wherever you get your Peristyle Podcasts. And like I said, it's the day before Christmas. We wanted to do a show because there's a lot been going on. Little preview of USC's Alamo Bowl, of course, talking about the reaction to the pausing of the series between USC and Notre Dame. If you have any questions or comments, podcast at uscfootball.com is the email address. You can call or text us at 424-254-9141, voicemails or text. I'm not going to do any voicemails this week because we're doing this remotely and it's a little bit janky, but we wanted to bring you a show. And then if you have Apple or Spotify, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a review on Apple, and then comments on our Spotify episodes. And we're with Connor right before we went live. Some Xfinity truck drove by and cut out his internet, but we're here. It's back. Welcome, Connor. How you doing?
Good, Ryan. Thank you. That's actually the second connection issue I've had since I've been home. There was a crazy windstorm on Friday last week, and the power went out for 12 hours. So I guess this is why you should never leave sunny Southern California. Although I guess it's supposed to really rain there today, right? So maybe that's not good advice today.
Yeah. No. But it's good. But it's good to see you. It's good to see everybody out there. And we have the chat going live, so I think I can bring this up. Let me see if this works. So I'll try to bring up comments. So if you have comments, we'll put them up on the screen. Look at that. There you go. We have your comments, questions. So if you have a question or anything, put it in the chat, and I will put it up on the screen. El Gordo Flacco says the rain is rough. It's raining in Southern California. So it's like 8 in the morning in Southern California. It's 11 here. I just got here last night. I got bumped off one flight getting here, but I made it to DC, flew into DCA, which was cool. You get to see like the Washington Monument and the Pentagon and stuff, when you fly in here, which, pretty cool. But yeah, I wanted to see my sister, see my family. So it's cool to be here, and it's cool to talk to you, Connor. And it's cool to get everybody in the chat and stuff. So thank you for joining us on Christmas Eve day.
It is great to see everyone. Great to be with you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. And I think we have a canceled rivalry or suspended rivalry that we need to talk about.
Yeah, the USC and Notre Dame played every year since 1926, except for 3 during World War II. I'm actually reading a World War II, like Winston Churchill, the bombings of London book right now. That's what I was reading on the plane. And then the pandemic in 2020. And I gave a lot of my thoughts. Well, Harvey Hyde, if you listen to that show, he was very much, there's some old school people that are like, never drop this game, sort of blaming USC, which I don't agree with. I kind of gave some of my opinions there, but if you don't know, the series has been paused. The conventional wisdom and from the reports and what I've heard as well is 2030 they could get it going again. I think there's a possibility of if some dominoes fall that USC could schedule Notre Dame again in maybe 2028, but at least for the foreseeable future, the game isn't going to happen. And I gave some thoughts and I'll give some more now, but I wanted to give you the floor, Connor, to kind of get your thoughts on, how this went down, who was at fault, and what do you think it means going forward?
Thank you. My initial thought was disappointing. As I've talked about on this show before, this was a game growing up on the East Coast that I always really paid attention to, and really sad that it's going away, at least for a few years. So that's my first thought. Second thought, in terms of USC getting to its first ever college football playoff, this should make the path easier. So I get why this move is in USC's best interest. For Notre Dame, they didn't want to play the game in September. They didn't want to play in week 0, potentially in August. So I don't think it's one side really saying, oh, or like just no one wanted to give up any ground. And so that's sort of why we're at this stalemate. And that is too bad. But like we were saying off the air, Ryan, like if USC felt like they needed this game, then it could have stayed the same. If Notre Dame felt like they really needed this game, then they would have played week 0 or in September. So I think it's pointless to say 100% of the blame is on a certain side when both sides had opportunities to continue the game and they chose not to. So I start there, but yeah, initially I'm disappointed, and um, I'm happy that it should come back in 2030, but this will be an unfortunate break. And yeah, a lot more thoughts to get to as well. But I just push back so strongly on it's 100% Notre Dame's fault or it's 100% USC's fault. Like in so many of these situations, there is blame on both sides, and got to acknowledge that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Notre Dame certainly won the early PR battle, and we talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago on the show. Like I think Lincoln Riley's comments about, yeah, maybe it's not in our best interest. Was it 2024 Big Ten Media Days? Did not go over well at the time. I think the sentiment towards Notre Dame has changed a bit, and the way that they acted after getting left out of the college football playoff, the whole taking my ball, going home. And, one thing Harvey Hyde did mention, because he's kind of tied into a lot of the bowls is, and he loves the bowls, and there's some people that just really still love the bowl system. For Notre Dame to drop out of that bowl, it had this cascading effect and affected a whole bunch of programs. And I feel like if Notre Dame took some time, they would have played, they would have said, okay, calm down. This was a terrible situation, but the best thing for our program is to play in a bowl game, helps the younger players and all that. But opting out of the bowl, I don't think was a good look. Going on like a media tour, kind of, getting into it with the Big 12 and everything else, I don't think that was a really good look. And I think, looking at Notre Dame's schedule next year, USC's got a lot of really good games. Notre Dame, you're trying to find them. BYU is a good addition. I think that helps. But outside of that, it's like you almost need to be flawless. Losing 2 games again, you're not going to have a signature win on your schedule, and then it's going to be hard to justify getting into the playoffs, even though the rules have changed a little bit. But I agree with you, and this is something we talked about, that if USC wanted this game no matter what, the series would still be going on. And that's true. So if you hear Notre Dame fans saying that, you could still play the game in October and November, and the series would happen. If Notre Dame really wanted this series more than anything, it would be happening because they could have agreed to play in September what USC wanted. So both sides had sort of demands, and where were you going to, was any side going to give in? I think I talked to an analogy off air with Connor about like, hey, your kid gets kidnapped and there's $1 million ransom. You're like, yeah, I'm not paying that. Well, how bad do you want your kid? If Notre Dame really wanted this game, they would have played in September. If USC really wanted this game, they would have, so they were really strongly feeling about that. I was thinking about the Olympics are coming to Los Angeles, Connor, in 2028. How silly is it that the metro doesn't go to LAX? It goes like a few miles away. And like back in the day, back when that was happening, there was problems with this. There was the taxi lobby was pushing back on it. And, it would be better for the city if the metro went to LAX. But when that was going on, there was all these other problems, and those other problems took precedent over what's best for the city. I think the best thing for college football is for USC and Notre Dame to play. But for that to happen, all these other interests are there, and no one was going to give in. And so we don't have a metro that goes right to Los Angeles airport, which sucks. We're not going to have USC Notre Dame for a little while, at least, which sucks. But sometimes people are protecting their own interests, and I get it. I understand. I still feel Notre Dame needs the game more than USC. They wouldn't give in, and that's kind of where we are. So I agree with you. You can't blame. This isn't USC's fault. This isn't Notre Dame's fault. It takes 2 to tango here, and neither side was willing to give in to what their best interest was. And you can understand Jen Cohen and everybody. This is what's the best interest of USC. If you look at their schedule next year, it's really, really hard to not have Notre Dame on it. It's kind of helpful, and they could still go 10-2 and make the college football playoff. I don't know if Notre Dame can do the same thing. It's interesting that Notre Dame wouldn't sort of like acquiesce a little bit here, but that's, everyone's got their cards to play. They both played them, and here we are.
And what's interesting too, so why isn't the game in USC's best interest? Well, obviously because they're in the Big Ten and they have a very challenging schedule is the first thing on that list. But then the second thing, it's because Notre Dame's good and USC's lost 7 of the last 8 to them. If this was Stanford, who they played annually, would we be having this conversation? That's one thing that frustrates me. And I get the sense that a lot of USC fans out there, they're like, we're sticking it to Notre Dame by not playing this game. And what does Notre Dame do? They go out and schedule a BYU team that's won 11 games the last 2 years. So they swap out USC for a BYU team that's been better than USC the last couple of years. So the one kind of frustrating piece of this, USC is doing what's in its best interest, but when you have lately really struggled to beat a team, like the fact that USC isn't where they need to be, that's why this is in their best interest. Where if they had gone, say, 4-4 in the last 8 games, would we be having a different conversation? If Lincoln Riley was 3-1 instead of 1-3 against Notre Dame in his tenure, would we be having a different conversation? So that's something that kind of has frustrated me, where I get why USC fans are happy to not have the game on the schedule. They want the best possible chance to make the playoff, and playing another good team out of conference late in the year doesn't accomplish that. So I understand the road trip part of it. I get it. But look at USC's schedule this year, too, where the Big Ten worked very diligently with USC to make it manageable. Where, yeah, they had the extra road trip, but they had a couple bye weeks built in. And so I know the travel is another component. And we look at, like, Georgia plays Georgia Tech at the end of the year, and South Carolina plays Clemson at the end of the year. Those are hard games for those schools, but there isn't as much travel. I do think there was an opening for USC on its schedule at the end of the year. Notre Dame had an opening. Like, I honestly would have liked to have seen it extended one more year, and then you can kind of dig your heels in the ground and say, look, going forward, we're going to need to see some changes. I didn't love how it just kind of gradually petered out when USC still has an opening. But those are some other thoughts I have too. Little frustrating with that side of it. I think if USC was better, I don't know if we'd be having this conversation.
I mean, that they haven't done as well, but even with BYU being good recently, it's not USC. It's not the NBC is not going to promote the heck out of the game. Like, there's something missing that, yes, BYU's been better recently, but the history of USC Notre Dame and the combined Heismans and all that stuff, you can't replace that. Like, that doesn't matter if someone's good today or tomorrow. And the history, it goes around. And there are important aspects for USC. When USC's won the Heisman, it's usually a signature game against Notre Dame. Like, those things matter. But I get it. Because college football's changed so much, you could still have that. It's just you need to do it, for USC's point of view, a different time. Notre Dame needs better games later in the season. It's much harder for them to schedule them. And so everyone's sort of dug their heels in. We got a super chat. I don't have my soundboard here, but cha-ching.
Cha-ching.
Let's pull it up. Hold on. But man, this is really small on my screen. Can you read that? I can't even read it right now.
Happy to read it. Big E for USC. Very nice message. Happy holidays, guys. Thanks for all your great coverage this season. Thanks for taking the calls and questions to talk SC football. Grab a holiday beer on me. Enjoy time with your family and friends. Fight on, Eric. Thank you so much, Eric. That's
really cool, Eric. Yeah, that was like a lot of words, and on my laptop, this is so much smaller. But I could kind of read it over here. But yeah. Yeah, we do have questions and stuff kind of rolling into the chat. So, I can put some of the comments up here from our little discussion, but God, it's hard to read. The goal is the playoffs. The goal is the playoffs. Yes, every team needs to operate in its best interest, and USC is doing that, just like ND. Yeah, I think the issue though is for Notre Dame. There's potential problems of not just USC not wanting to play the Irish. There's other things too. I did hear from a source that there's a possibility this series goes back in 2028, but that would entail Notre Dame probably losing another high-profile opponent. So if that does happen, though, if other high-profile programs cancel games with Notre Dame or not schedule those games, I think that could change the calculus a little bit too. There is pressure from some to that just have Notre Dame join the conference, and if they join the Big Ten, it would be much easier for USC. So we'll see. We'll see kind of what happens with that.
That would change my thinking on who needs the game more if opposing teams begin to cancel their series with Notre Dame because of this. I think it's one thing for that rule to come out where Notre Dame is in the top 12. If they are, they automatically make the playoff. And then Yahoo Sports has the thing, well, okay, that's leading to other athletic directors freezing out Notre Dame. Like, fine, let's see if that actually happens, though. USC freezes them out, and then they replace that game immediately with BYU. If they do drop a marquee opponent who's agreed to a deal moving forward because of that, then that would lead me to say, okay, they actually are having some trouble getting games. But when they can easily switch USC with another marquee team, I know it's different. Nothing will replace USC Notre Dame, but at least it's not like they're scheduling say they replace them with Boston College. That's different. At least you're playing a competitive team in a tough environment in Provo. So that's kind of my thinking there. But yeah, let's say they have a high profile game down the line and the other team backs out of it. Then I'd say, okay, maybe this being independent for them is biting them in the ass and not working. But to this point, I think them being independent has worked for them, and that's why they continue to want to do it.
In the chat, is Notre Dame replaced USC with a cupcake? So Notre Dame has BYU, and we haven't seen who USC has yet.
It sounds like they're pushing for a Cal or Stanford in week 0, which would be a great game. That would be fun. If not, though, every other Power 4 league has the mandate that you have to play 10 power opponents, but the Big Ten does not. So say Cal and Stanford end up not working out, USC could play like a Missouri State again, which I freaking hope that doesn't happen. You can't have 3-0 games if you're USC. That would be disappointing.
Yeah, USC never has 3-0 games. Like they've never done. They've always had like LSU and Notre Dame or things like that. So where other schools have, if they had 1 year of that, like I said, but I don't think that's something that you would want to do regularly. Mike on the East Lake. I don't understand why Notre Dame was so opposed to scheduling the game early in the season.
Well, I look at their 2026 schedule. So they have September 6th, September 12th, September 19th, September 26th. Unless my math is terrible, wasn't it just a case of they were booked in September and they didn't want to play a September game because they were already filled?
My understanding was that they could have, but the preference is they need it later in the, they would like to have, they just wanted to keep it the way it was. There was definitely an opportunity for USC and Notre Dame to play early. That was not the preference. And I think you're sort of started setting a precedent where you don't want to keep doing that. I don't know what's going on. I hear more from the USC side, obviously, than Notre Dame side. I'm going to try to talk to other people too, but it did seem like they were sort of digging their heels in and just being like, this is the way it should be. Maybe that's because like they needed Notre Dame and USC to play later in the season so they could get, Miami and Texas A&M early. Like if you put USC early, then that's like one less Miami or Texas A&M you could get in that early window. I think it's some of the realities of how you create this independent schedule in a new era where now you have 18, 16, 17 team leagues that have a lot of games, and to have a feud with the ACC that you have this agreement with, that seemed like that could end. So I mean, I don't know. This is almost like the world. You want to do the World War II stuff where Germany's opening up fronts. Like did you need to have all these fronts open? Like you could focus on one. It seemed like Notre Dame started fighting with a lot of people out there. I don't know how well that's going to go over, but we'll see. Like they obviously storied brand, they have very strong opinions about where they, how they exist, and this was just something that's been in the works, or just this is the way it's always been. But so many things have changed in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, it's very, very different landscape, and I think in the beginning I was sort of like, you just got to play this game. And then I sort of realized, like, for USC, just even going on all the road trips we did this year, I was like, oh my God, that was a pain in the butt every other week, getting on a plane, multiple time zones and 2-hour drives or whatever. Like, it was like, this kind of sucks. Do that one early in the season. It made sense. It's like, you don't get rid of it, but you just move it. And I think that was a reasonable request for USC. USC signed up for this. Like, people like, whose fault is it that they're taking all these road trips in the Midwest? It's USC's fault. They took more money. They joined the conference. The Pac-12 was dying. I get it, but there are consequences to your actions, and joining the Big Ten made things tougher. The schedule's a lot tougher. I think if you look at USC's schedule from 10 years ago to now, it got a lot harder. I think Notre Dame's schedule from 10 years ago to now got easier. And so USC needed to make some adjustments, and Notre Dame's trying to make some adjustments too. So I wish they could have worked it out, but, and from the people I'm hearing, I think it seems like USC wasn't making some horrible request. I think they were trying to be reasonable about this, but they wanted this to be an early game. And like, that was like it seemed like a that was a non-negotiable for Notre Dame. So that's, to me, that's why it didn't work out.
It'll be interesting to see if they end up playing in 2028 or 2030. Does Notre Dame switch and agree to play early because they get dropped by someone else and then they end up needing the game? Like, I just don't know where this goes from here if Notre Dame is continuing to be able to schedule how they've scheduled and get a lot of marquee teams early. If that is what's happening and teams don't drop them, I don't know if there'll be room for USC. Won't they continue to be stubborn with that? And won't USC continue to be stubborn? So that's the question I have. And maybe in the future, they agree to play every other year early, and that would be enough to make people happy. But I just think we need to see something else change in order for there to be a compromise, because if it's business as usual and Notre Dame continues to schedule these really tough teams early in the year, when they go back to negotiating, I don't know what's changed to have them say, oh, okay, actually, we had a miscalculation. We're going to need to play USC now early. And then for USC, they're going to stay in the Big Ten for a while, unless something crazy happens with the private equity money. That's a story for a different day. But they're not going anywhere. And so they're not going to want to play Notre Dame later in the year. So something would have to change on Notre Dame's end to get this game scheduled early. And I don't know if anything will change by 2030 for them to be in that spot. So that's, I think, the next shoe to drop. Let's see sort of if Notre Dame continues to schedule other marquee opponents early.
I put up a bunch of comments if you're watching on YouTube. There's good comments in the chat. But Blackie Chan had a question. What are your thoughts about what Keyshawn Johnson said about the administration? I don't know if you saw his rant.
USC people. Just pretty much how they're not USC people.
Yeah, it's like, by the way, I was like, Keyshawn, love you, but you know what got USC into 20 years of hell? Like, they only hired the USC people. Like, you needed to avoid that. You had to hire people that are good at their jobs, And Jen Cohen, she's really good at her job. And I'd rather have her doing this than Pat Hayden or Lynn Swan. And that was a weird sort of rant to me, and I don't think it was really fair. I think some of the perception out there is that this is a USC thing. They don't want to play and all that stuff. But I disagreed with that one. I don't know if you felt the same way.
I don't think the right argument is the administration at USC, because they're not USC people, don't understand the magnitude of the rivalry. That, to me, is misguided, because of course they understand it, even though they maybe didn't grow up with it necessarily. But the better one, and where I agree with him a little bit, is the aspect of USC being scared. And there's a difference between being scared and being smart, but there is a gray area to me where it's smart not to play Notre Dame because it gives you the best chance to make the playoff. But there is a little bit of a scared element there, because Notre Dame has won 7 of the last 8 games against you. I go back to what I said earlier. If it was Stanford, who they played every year, or let's say some so-so team in the Midwest, to have the travel be the same. Like if they played someone in the Big 12, like if they played Cincinnati every year for whatever reason, and USC had more success against Cincinnati, are we having the same conversation? So that, to me, like I disagree with him talking about the administration not really understanding the weight of the rivalry. I think they do, but I do think there's something to what he's talking about being scared, because Notre Dame has just had so much success against USC, and logically, does it make sense to play them? No, but if they weren't as good, it would make more sense to me. And that's kind of the scared versus not scared, smart versus not smart. There's a middle zone in there.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a weird one. It is funny, and I'm going to try to talk to some other former players as well, because a lot of times former players, it means a lot to them. If you listen to the Harvey Hyde show, it means a lot to him. But like Dan Weber, he wrote a really good column about this. If you are on USCfootball.com, make sure you check it out. And sometimes it's like, well, is this an older fan or is this a younger fan? This was a situation where, like, Dan's an older guy. He gets the history. I mean, he was on the college football, like, Hall of Fame tour back in the day. I mean, he's got a lot of stories about it. And he's on the side of, like, hey, it's time for, move the game early or just drop them. And, Bill Plaschke, who's, a lot of USC fans, felt like he's more of a UCLA guy. I think I think he's really opinionated, but he's come out and, he wrote a column about, this is, Notre Dame is the one that took their ball and went home. Colin Cowherd, who's a huge USC fan, he's a friend of the program on the show. He was going off on Notre Dame, saying their schedule's like scheduling PE and home ec and all that kind of stuff. So I think USC lost the PR battle early, but there's more momentum now. I do think in general it sucks for college football with USC and Notre Dame. I think is just better, but a lot of people think like college football was better when players weren't getting paid, and they couldn't transfer and all. It's a different sport now. So I'm hopeful that it'll get back. And I think that by 2030 the sport's going to look different too. And the big, there could be a super league by then where everyone's in the same, like, I don't know, we'll see what happens, but it's a sport that's changed a lot.
What'd you make of the straw that broke the camel's back being the rule that if it stays as a 12-team playoff, if Notre Dame's in the top 12, they automatically get into the playoff, even if a team who lost to them is ahead of them? I get that rule is frustrating, but to have that be the thing for USC that ended up suspending this rivalry when the rules could change in a month, and for that situation to happen, you would need very specific circumstances. And I know, looking at this year, it could have potentially worked against Miami. I know, but
it literally happened this year.
I know, but the committee, I think, would have dropped Notre Dame to 13 to get out of having a head-to-head situation, kind of like they did this year. They dropped them not out of the top 12, but they dropped them so they didn't make it. So maybe I'm giving the committee too much trouble, but I don't know. I just didn't like USC's got to make the playoff before they can say, well, this doesn't give us the best chance of making the playoff. This rule about Notre Dame, like, I don't know, that to me was kind of like, just worry about yourself.
Yeah, no, I think but that is a really interesting rule. And so it's funny because I like Ross Dellinger, and he reported this like a year ago. It's what memorandum of understanding, is that I think that's the term for the playoff, and they had a deadline for changing the playoffs and they moved it or whatever. But in the memorandum of understanding, it changed a couple things. One of them being, instead of the top 5 highest ranked conference opponents, which everyone thought would be the Power 4 and a group of 5, it would just be the Power 4 each champion each get in, and then one group of 5 champion, the highest ranked one of them. This year, that would have changed things because Duke would have been in the college football playoff and not the way Miami got in, and not JMU. The other one being that if Notre Dame's in the top 12, and they're automatically in. So like Connor mentioned, if that happened because Miami and Notre Dame had the head-to-head, they moved Miami ahead of Notre Dame so they would honor the head-to-head. But by the rules, unless they dropped Notre Dame out of the top 12, Notre Dame would still got in and Miami would have been out. So that's and it's something that existed a year ago, and Ross reported on it, but it wasn't something that was agreed on by all of the ADs. This was more of the commissioners. And so, USC is saying like, hey, we didn't even know about this. It was something that was out there, but nobody realized it. Once Ross basically just like retweeted his tweet from a year ago, and everyone went bananas. So it's like, hey, I talked about this a year ago, but nobody like quite understood what it meant, especially because of the. So I get it that would be. To me, Connor, like to answer your question, I don't think that was like a huge part of the calculus because even though it did happen this year, but it's also a factor too. It's like, man, like Notre Dame's getting this kind of treatment. USC hasn't made the playoff. We need to do whatever we can to make it. Like, we'll play you, but we're going to play you in September. And I think it just gave them more resolve to be like, we're not going to say, oh, well, we'll just play you in November next year because that's when we normally do it. I think, if anything, it just helped USC be like, look, we will play you. We're going to play you in September. Can you do it? And Notre Dame was like, no, we're not going to do it. So I think it gave them more resolve, but not like the straw that broke the camel's back, in my opinion.
I just didn't think that was a great look for USC when that was out before, although I get it's tricky and there's so many moving pieces and it is very challenging to understand everything that goes on with the playoff, especially it doesn't sound like Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, does a very good job of communicating stuff to his players, like the Big Ten schools. So I give him some blame too. But the fact that was out there a year before and was reported on, that was just a miss. So even if it was tough to find that out, the last thing I want to ask you, Ryan, what if Kurt Signetti was the coach of USC? Don't you think none of this stuff would really be at the forefront and he'd just say, we have to get better and we just have to do what we have to do and we need to control what we can control and just focus on ourselves and play the best possible football. Like the one thing I don't love is like the posturing. Oh, this gives us the best chance to make the playoff when they haven't made the playoff. Like, just get your house in order. That's kind of my last thought with USC, and that's why I have some frustration with this game going away.
No, I think Signetti would like probably not care or worry about it. He's going to just put the people in front of him. But I think this is more from the administration side, like what's best for USC. Even if that's the thing though. I think even if USC was like beating Notre Dame and getting into the playoffs, seeing you want to keep doing it. It's not just like what you've done and feeling like, man, this an extra road trip in the middle of the season and playing an out of conference opponent like this that's making the playoffs a bunch in the middle of the season or late in the season. No one else is doing that. Why are we doing that? Like, we're hanging on to this tradition. So I that's the thing, Connor. I think even if they were winning, I think just it would change the perception. I don't think it would change the desire to be like, we have to adjust what we're doing. If we want to keep making the playoffs, we're going to make our road even harder.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think if USC was consistently making the playoff with Notre Dame on the schedule, that would be a much easier just situation to say to the fans, look, we don't want to get rid of this game because we can get to the top of the mountain with this game. They haven't gotten to the top of the mountain and they're getting rid of the game. It's just fundamentally not the greatest look, even though I do understand why it is being done.
Yeah. All right. Well, we talked a lot about that. If you're in the chat live, how many people do we got with us on Christmas Eve? Oh, we got over 100 people. That's pretty amazing. I didn't know. I haven't looked. Everything's a little smaller on my laptop here. So to produce a show, multiple screens, and get your comments and everything, it's a little bit more challenging. I'm not digging ditches or anything, but I just want to make sure. But I didn't get to see how many people we got live. So thank you for joining us live. We appreciate it. If you have questions, put it in there. I'll star them and get to them. But a couple other things we want to get to before we take a break and do questions. Danton Lynn, a lot of smoke about his future at USC. He got a good deal last year after Penn State made a run at him. What is the latest you're hearing on USC's defensive coordinator, Connor?
Still sounds like Penn State is in the mix. There is another school potentially in the mix as well that I've been asked not to share right now. So I see all the messages on our website because I've reported that another school's been interested. And why can't you share it? Why can't you share it? Once everything settles, I'll share it. But right now, just want to respect people who I get some information from. So I won't report it. But I don't know, Ryan. I'm at a little bit of a crossroads here with just stuff I'm hearing where because this has been such a public saga with him courting Penn State again after getting that big deal and this other school being involved, like it does sound like USC is a little bit sick of this act. And if he doesn't get a new job, I have some questions about whether he'll even be there moving forward next season. In an ideal world, it sounds like USC wants the consistency and wants to bring him back, but I don't think how public this whole thing has been with him in Penn State and potentially other schools that hasn't really made USC happy after he got a big deal, which is understandable. So I think there are questions if even if he doesn't have a new job by the bowl game, if he's going to coach in the bowl game, he certainly could coach in the bowl game, and he certainly could be at USC next year. Nothing is set in stone. I don't want it to sound like stuff is, but the latest I've heard is that he's still alive for the Penn State job. They haven't hired anyone. There might be another job if certain things move in a certain direction, and all that uncertainty. Like if you're USC, they need to act and potentially get a replacement before the transfer portal opens January 2nd. So it's all in a holding pattern right now, and the most logical thing is he leaves and then they just bring in someone else. But what's going to be interesting is if he doesn't end up getting the Penn State job or another job, is Lincoln Riley or Jen Cohen, are they kind of like, okay, we can't have this guy flirting to leave every year? Not
Yeah.
that you can fire him, but is there a way that they just kind of go in a different direction? That's kind of where I'm at. But like I said, he certainly could be coaching the bowl game. He certainly could be back next year. It's just a lot of moving pieces right now.
Yeah, they're talking about the buyout in the chat. Yeah, like at USC, I mean, they did sign him to a new deal, and it makes it a little harder for someone else to come in and hire him. Someone also pointed in the chat too that my clock is wrong in here. I'm in my this is my sister's office, and I flipped it around. I like her desk is behind me, but the light's behind her, so I look terrible. So I'm like, this is on a bed, so it's a little janky. But yeah, I'll tell my sister if her clock is wrong. I don't think she's changed it or whatever, but. Yes, it's on the. I don't know what's going on there. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Anton Lynn. I thought that something might happen a little bit earlier. The longer it goes, then you're like, okay, what's going on here? He was supposed to speak to the media. That ended up not happening. So moving pieces going on behind the scenes heading into the bowl game. Of course, you have transfer portal stuff. I don't know if you want to give a few thoughts on TCU. We know their starting quarterback is going to be out. Maybe talk about there's some of the big names for USC that won't be playing in this one. Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane, they've opted out. Kamari Ramsey, Lake McCree won't be in there. We're still waiting on status of guys like Bishop Fitzgerald, and then there's guys like Devin Tompkins that are in the portal. So it's a lot of moving parts with that too. If you want to kind of give your thoughts on where USC is roster wise and heading into the Alamo Bowl with TCU.
And there are still some players who haven't signed yet for next season, which is interesting. I don't think Judea Abasiri signed. I don't think Alex Graham is signed yet. So those are two guys who would be instrumental in a bowl game, but we'll have to see what they do. Yeah. So the first thought with TCU, their quarterback who's good has entered the portal, I think, and opted out. So that is disappointing. And a couple of their receivers, I think, have opted out. Their offensive coordinator left. So this game, to me, even more so than the past couple bowl games under Lincoln Riley, it just feels like a glorified scrimmage in the sense of, yes, Jade Mayava's back, but like, what are we going to see from USC's wide receivers? It's going to be Tanu Kynes. It's going to be Jaden Richardson, who played a good amount during the year. But then after that, Zacharias Williams should get an opportunity because Lemon and Lane are out. And maybe Corey Sims gets an opportunity. Maybe Romero Eisen gets an opportunity. At tight end, Walker Lyons is in the portal. Lake McCree's opted out. Everyone is clamoring for Walter Matthews to make an appearance. Maybe he does something. Joey Olson will have a chance. Nella Tapo will have an opportunity. Carson Tabarachi. So I think the most fascinating part of this is the pass catchers. And then defensively, it's another really good opportunity for Desmond Stevens, another really good opportunity for Jaden Walker. But Eric Gentry has opted out of the bowl game to prepare for the draft. So there's a third linebacker. Elijah Newby re-signed with USC last night. Does he work in? Does Tamir Robinson work in more? It's a great audition for next season, which is pretty much what bowl games have become now. So I look at that. We'll see who the heck plays in the secondary if Bishop Fitzgerald's out along with Ramsey. Kennedy Urlacher, Christian Pierce at cornerback. DeCarlos Nicholson will play. Marcellus Williams will play. So there's a little bit more guys who've played during the year. We'll see them in the secondary. We could get a mystery linebacker. We'll probably get some potentially new guys on the defensive line if Anthony Lucas especially doesn't play because he's hurt. Maybe Jaden Ramos gets in there. That would be cool to see. Devin Tompkins is out. He's a guy who can do both. Jakeem Stewart will not play because he's hurt. And you're just kind of running out of bodies at that point. So maybe Cash Jacobson gets some run on the defensive side of the ball. The offensive line should look pretty similar to what it's been during the year with a lot of moving pieces, but pretty much everyone's back. So you know what you're getting there. And then another question is what's going to happen with Husan Longstreet, the 5-star true freshman who could potentially be playing in his last game for USC if he enters the portal with Jade Mayava coming back. How will USC handle that? Mayava, I imagine, will start. I think that's a guarantee, but do you give Longstreet some run just to see what he can do? So it's going to be fascinating to see how Lincoln Riley and the staff handles it. But above all, because of just USC's situation with the opt-outs, because of TCU's situations with coaches leaving and their opt-outs, like I look at this game first and foremost as an audition for next year. And I think that's the best part of this. We can see the guys we didn't see during the year, what they can do. And that's really fun. And Lincoln Riley and the staff, to their credit, USC's won the last 2 bowl games because they've taken those bowl practices very seriously. And so that even heightens the audition. These guys are going to be ready to go, these young players. And that's my biggest storyline that I'll be watching. Which young players are going to step up?
Yeah, and it's helped USC the last 2 years. You got to give Lincoln Riley credit for getting the team ready for lesser bowl games. When their record during the regular season wasn't as great, it helped them a lot. We saw Miller Moss get like a boost, and Caleb Williams cheering him on as he threw. I think he threw 4 touchdown passes against Louisville, if I'm not mistaken. And you see Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane sort of bust out. And last year Jade Mayava throws 3 picks, but has the crazy comeback. Probably helped him in his development throughout, the offseason to have him being one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the country this year. It's helped. And I think, another reason why for Notre Dame, I think it doesn't help to sit out. There's just a lot of good reasons to be in these games and take it as serious as you can. But, even though guys are going to opt out, yeah, you wouldn't have Jeremiah Love and there's a bunch of other dudes you want, but the next guys will be, and that gives them an opportunity to showcase their talents and develop. So I think Lincoln Riley's done a nice job with that. So we'll see how this one goes down in San Antone. We should take a break and talk, but I forgot to mention at the top of the show, because we had a lot going on, our partner, Trader Joe's. At the end of the season, probably the last, maybe we'll do one more show right before the bowl game or right afterwards, before the end of the year. But yeah, we thankful for another year of partnership with Trader Joe's. They've been such a great friend to the show. I got a package right before I left, Connor. Our buddy John over there sent some more gift cards for us and stuff, and we've sent a bunch to listeners over the years. And we appreciate them, writing in or leaving reviews and working with Trader Joe's. I checked out. There's a Trader Joe's like 3 miles from here in my sister's house, so I'm going to head over there a little bit. But I make sure when I get back from my vacation, you got to stop in and stock up on things. But they do have a lot of cool Christmas stuff. The Grump tree, if you want a little something to decorate, I have one on my mantle and little lights on it and everything. It looks like something from the Grinch. So it's kind of cool. But a lot of cool stuff for the holidays. I love going to Trader Joe's. And I don't know, do you have any is there any in Franklin? I think there's one in Milford in Trader Joe's now.
I think that's the closest one. None in Franklin, but I'll certainly be getting over to Milford, your old stomping grounds, to go to Trader Joe's. That's for sure.
Yeah. If you guys don't know, so we're actually both on the East Coast right now. My sister's in Alexandria, Virginia, but I went to high school in Milford, Massachusetts. Connor happened to go to high school in Franklin, Massachusetts, which is literally the next town over, and he's visiting family there right now. So yes, there's when Connor first interviewed with me or whatever, I'm like, why do you have a 508 area code for your phone? And it's like, yeah, from Franklin. Good stuff. But you got to check out Trader Joe's in Milford, Mass. Well, we got it there. It was like a big deal. All right. Well, that's good. Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break. and we'll come back in a second and talk some more USC football. Back in a minute, everybody. All right, I don't have my board, so I can't make the sound or whatever, but we just did a little pause. If you're watching on video, there's really not much of a pause, but we just, we do that there. We had a couple email questions, and then if you're in the chat and you have a question, I starred a few, but you can put them in there. And let's see. We'll pull up these questions and stuff. Is there an issue, Connor? No.
I was just going to say, if you're having trouble reading the comments or questions, they're bigger on my screen. So if you want me to read them, I can.
Okay, I'll do that when I put them up there. We had an email of Marcel from the Inland Empire. Did USC lose any recruits to Michigan? Do you think we get any of their players since the firing of Jerome Moore? And man, the Michigan stuff is pretty crazy right now. The Detroit Free Press just did a story I retweeted. The Athletic did a story. I actually had dinner with Bruce Feldman on my birthday on what day was that? It's today, Wednesday. On Monday, we took his kids to see the Christmas lights and stuff. We kind of do that every year. After that story came out, and it was like, yeah, man, that guy was busy off the field. There's some crazy stuff going on there. But the question, any recruits that could be funneled USC's way, I guess there were players from the portal, anyone you've heard of.
So nothing I've heard of right now. The only guy in their 2026 class who USC really recruited and was potentially close to landing was the Hawaii offensive tackle Malachi Lee. But USC seems pretty stocked on the offensive line in that 2026 class. One area, though, where they're not stacked is linebacker, and USC lost what's his name? Nathaniel Owosu-Boateng sweepstakes to Michigan. So I don't know if potentially if he enters the portal, USC would be in on him. Benny Patterson was another defensive lineman who USC was in on. These are two class of 2025 guys. So maybe if they enter the portal, just because of the previous relationship, USC would look there, but I haven't really heard any links from Michigan players to USC. We'll see who enters the portal, and then the staff, that front office staff for USC, like they have scouting reports on everyone. They're running a very professional operation. If there's someone on Michigan who they're interested in, they'll go and try to get a deal done. So just because we haven't heard a specific name right now doesn't mean it's not a possibility.
Yeah. We'll see, but that's something to watch, man. Like that's USC is not going to play Michigan. I think the next couple of years because they played them the last two, but that's wild to have like a marquee program like that. And the fact that they still won 9 games this year. Yeah, I tweeted something about that, and one of the USC fans was like trying to make it like I was taking a shot at Lincoln Riley or something. I'm like, this is all about Michigan. I don't know what you're talking about, but he was like, well, that was Lincoln Riley's best win. Michigan still played pretty good football most of the time. Like I said, they won 9 games with all the distractions and coaches not, getting along, and, the head coach and the defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, not getting along. They still won games. So I wasn't saying that to take anything away from USC's win. That was a really good win against Michigan. We saw them go on the road and beat teams and everything. But the fact that their house was so much in disorder, like, it's pretty wild what was going on there. So this is an email I got that I was CC'd on, Connor. And it went to the USC athletic director. I think it was like USC AD at USC AD or something. I don't even know if that would get to Jen Cohen, but whatever. I wanted to read it for you. Dear AD, not playing Notre Dame doesn't make us look smart. It makes us look weak. You have got to be kidding me. Playing Notre Dame does not keep us out of the CFPs. It helps us get into the college football playoffs. Just think about what would have happened this year if we would have gone to South Bend and would have beaten Notre Dame. Notre Dame would be out with no doubt, and USC would be in the college football playoffs. Please try to rectify this incredibly horrible situation before it's too late. There's still time to put them on the schedule for next year. No, there's not, Paul. Paul, fan for 64 seasons. Yeah. So there's,
I mean, I get where he's coming from, and to go back to what I was saying, the smart thing is to not play them. But I think anytime you cancel a rivalry when you haven't had the success that you've wanted, like it just naturally looks weak. So I get where he's coming from. I get the frustration. I know a lot of fans, especially older fans, feel similarly. This has just been such an institution for so long. So yeah, that makes sense to me. I get that.
yeah. Okay. Let's go through some chat questions. John is like, remember the Weekender? That's one of the worst parts of having joining the Big Ten, the Cal Stanford games and stuff. And if there's a way to replace Notre Dame with like Cal and Stanford every other year or something, like I think that would be pretty cool. Um, I'm not sure though. What do you? Have you heard that that's like a possibility?
I think Ryan Karchi reported that that's what they're hoping for. So we'll see. And yeah, that would be a nice new tradition. I of course want Notre Dame to come back because I love that rivalry the most. But um, in the interim, yeah, go for Cal. I think Stanford might be forever not good. Cal, maybe with Tosh Lapoy and that good quarterback. Like I just like USC to play games against teams where it's not a Missouri State. It's not a Stanford from a couple of years ago when it was like 42 nothing at halftime. Like sue me, I like the competitive games. I don't really have much time for those blowouts.
Right. Bam Cams, you can read this one. He's not happy with you.
Saying canceling, excuse me, saying canceling looks weak, but don't add that USC offered the game to continue. Notre Dame said no. We talked about that. Why keep the narrative that it's SC's going? Because like we said off the top, if USC wanted to keep it going, they could have. If Notre Dame wanted to keep it going, they could have. It's not one side certainly said no, and the other side, like it. I guess technically USC said no at the last minute because they were all ready to go in 2026 this upcoming year, and then they found out about the Notre Dame being in the top 12 and guaranteeing them the spot in the playoff. And according to Ryan Karchi at the LA Times, that's why USC agreed to back out of the compromise at the last second. So it's not as one-sided as you think. Notre Dame didn't want the week 0, but USC was very close to agreeing to extending the deal in a short-term basis, and then they didn't. So you can't just say, oh, Notre Dame backed out. It was blame on both sides, and that needs to be communicated.
There's people have brought up the Michigan series for Notre Dame too. That's something that they dropped before, and yeah, that wasn't as it wasn't played as often as USC Notre Dame, but that was one that was disappointing. I remember being a college football fan going, "Oh, that's a bummer that those teams aren't going to play anymore."
I bet they regret canceling that game now.
I know.
Notre Dame.
Michigan might too. All right, here's one from Jeff. What's off topic? What's everyone's favorite Christmas dish?
I don't know if it's my favorite, but I'm French Canadian, and every year my family makes meat pie, and it's really good.
Wait, you didn't put this on your resume. I don't think I would have hired you if I knew you were French Canadian. That's good.
The ground beef and pork combined with some potato and a nice pie crust. I've really been enjoying that this holiday season.
I don't associate Christmas with like dishes the same way as I do Thanksgiving. I feel like I've had a smorgasbord, like different things. I associate Christmas. My mom makes a ton of different varieties of Christmas cookies. And that's more what I associate Christmas with. Like we would go, especially in Milford, we'd go out in the breezeway, which is like kind of an outdoor but enclosed area. It's colder in there, so it's like an ice box. We would keep all the cookies out there, so I would always sneak out. Oh, peanut butter ball or Hershey Kiss cookie or M&M cookie or whatever. Like that's kind of what I associate with Christmas is like my mom's Christmas cookies. And I've made a bunch too. Did I make some for you last year? I might have made some. I think I made some Christmas cookies.
You made some really good chocolate chip cookies during the season. I remember that.
Oh yeah. But yeah, some of the cookies and stuff. Let's see. This is from Joe. So when you were talking about the roster spots. So the 85 doesn't matter anymore. There's not 85 roster spots. The rule is 105. But I asked Lincoln Riley about this, I think earlier in the season, and that's going to be a gradual getting to 105. So basically, there's no more scholarships; it's only roster spots. Um, so there's more spot. USC has a bunch more spots.
I have a question though. With
Yeah,
that, like USC has some walk-ons who've been grandfathered in, and I think that stays the same. But say like you're a preferred walk-on from USC's 2026 class, these new rules are in place. You're on the roster, but you don't have a scholarship, right?
right. Yeah. So you can. So basically, the way this works was when they were trying. It came with the House settlement. If you said you can only have this many scholarships, apparently that was something that schools could get sued over or whatever. So what they did was we're going to make roster spots. So you can have 105 roster spots, give as many scholarships as you want. Where before, football was a head count sport, meaning every player on your team that had a scholarship had a full scholarship. Where if you had a baseball, you only had like 11 and a half or something like that scholarships. You could give a quarter or a half or whatever, a tenth of a scholarship. You spread it out between your whole roster. So for football, it's changed some things. For USC, it didn't impact that much. You went from 85 scholarship players to 105 roster. USC didn't keep 130, 40 guys on the roster like others, like a Nebraska had a whole bunch of walk-ons. They're going to be limited. USC, it's hard to get that many walk-ons because it's an expensive private school. So the roster limit didn't really impact USC's football very much. And, Lincoln Riley kind of mentioned some of that. The other schools, it impacts them more. But for like baseball, now you got to make decisions on how many, just because you can have that many roster spots doesn't mean you can have that many scholarships. It's not free. So it's interesting to see how that goes going forward. But for roster spots, not that much of an impact for USC. But we had to change our scholarship distribution chart because it was all about fitting within 85 scholarships. That's gone now. You could have, over 100 guys. If you want to give everyone a scholarship, you can. They won't. You're not going to have like the third string punter on scholarship, most likely. But they could have some kind of NIL deal. They can get some compensation. And you can give partial scholarships to people if you want to. So some of that stuff has changed.
Thank you. It's very confusing, so I
It is
appreciate the
confusing.
question and thank you for your answer.
I sort of had to dive in. The scholarship, I didn't even know much about it until like 2010. Once the scholarship, like USC got sanctioned and all these rules kind of came into play, it was like, oh my God, like how does this work? And there was, red shirts, normal. But then there was gray shirts where you're delaying. There was blue shirts where you're counting backwards. Like you had to play with the numbers as however you could. Now it's simpler. Just you have this many roster spots. We're going to get there eventually. I don't know how many years to the gradual 105, but then it's like you have 105 players. That's who you can have on your team. Give as many scholarships as you want. So
Yep.
it should be simpler that way. One last one in here I see. Has Stevens re-signed?
I would have to check, but I don't think so off the
I don't
top of
think
my
he
head.
has. Yeah, I don't think he has either. Um, but yeah,
Hopefully he does. I mean, I thought he played much better second half of the year. I know the staff really believes in him, and I think he has a pretty high ceiling. So I hope he resigns. I want him to be the middle linebacker, not only of the future but of the present. Give me 2 more years of him in the middle. That'd be great.
yeah. Uh, Jixer Squid. Oh, you want to read this one? Can you see it?
With internal budget cuts at USC, is Lincoln Riley under more pressure to perform, given his contract and the athletic budget being separate? I think he meant to say given his contract and the athletic budget being separate. I think football is always you're always under pressure to perform, especially in his situation when the last 2 years before this one weren't particularly good. And uh, getting rid of Notre Dame, by the way, Ryan, next year is playoff or bust, 1,000%.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. If Notre Dame was still on the schedule and they went 9-3, I would be okay with that just because it's hard. But now that they're gone, that there is pressure. So I don't think the financial piece is why he would be under pressure. It's just comes down to the wins and losses. USC can afford to pay Lincoln Riley what he makes. So it's all about the wins and losses.
Yeah, I think so. And I think things have got better, like on that side with, it seems like, it seems like there's a lot of positive things going on. I wouldn't worry about the budgets or whatever. USC still doesn't have a full-time president yet. There's a lot kind of going on there, but yeah, I feel like for Lincoln Riley, it's about winning and losing, not about because of the budgets or whatever. Here's one from Blackie Chan. If you want to read it, yeah.
How many? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot. How many players do you think Lincoln and Chad take from the portal, and what's the most important position to get early? I think they get 7 to 10 would be my guess, and the most important position to get early. Probably that. I mean, it depends because some guys will draw out the negotiation, so you can't get them early. But I, I think for next year's team, getting that alpha receiver or just a couple of really good receivers is really important. And then on the defensive side of it, we'll see who else shakes free. But getting a really good corner, I've kind of come around on that. I didn't think maybe they needed one, but now I do. Getting and then a sack guy. So I think receiver and edge rusher are probably the two biggest ones for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've gone over an hour and it's Christmas Eve. If we let you get back to your family, I got to get back to mine. I'm surprised.
Yes.
So I'm in the room where like people would like wrap presents and stuff down in my mom. Like we're up there and she's like, well, I need to wrap some presents. Like not for the next hour. I got to do the show. So just stay out of your mom. So I was really surprised. She has to like walk through the door like, oh, I'm sorry or whatever. But yeah. Well, hopefully this sounded okay and looked okay. I know it's Christmas Eve, and we wanted to get a show in and let you kind of give your thoughts on the whole Notre Dame thing and the upcoming Alamo Bowl and Danton Lynn and everything. There's a lot going on, even over the holidays. We'll both be traveling, but yeah, we'll get you some more content coming from the Alamo Bowl with USC and TCU. And want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. Have fun in Milford if you go there. Connor,
Thank you.
go to Friendly's, get a fribble or something.
Yep. Gotta.
Were you a Friendly guy?
Oh, of course. Grilled
Yes.
cheese there was the best.
Friendly's was, I loved going to Friendly's. They had the Reese's Pieces sundae, which was like the biggest sundae I've ever seen before. It was just, oh, that was so good. Back then it was like $4. It's probably like $12 now or something because it's massive, but good stuff. Well, anyway, that's Connor Morrissette. I am Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.